Hey, so this is future Kelsey, and before we get into the episode, I want to talk a bit briefly about my current attitudes towards this because my thoughts have kind of changed compared to what you're going to see in the episode. So, since my hate comments video has been posted, I thought a lot about whether to take it down or to leave it up, and I was really thinking about taking it down just because, I got some comments and people saying they had never seen my content before, and found that video and discovered me because of that video, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I just wanted it to be a PSA to my audience, and I didn't want it to be a thing that drove growth and engagement, but it did. And so I thought about unlisting it or privating it, and then Adam Duff, a fellow art YouTuber, made a response video to my video, which was super kind of him. He was very supportive, and I chose to keep it up kind of because of that. But yeah, some of my thoughts have changed since then. I have since found someone to moderate my comments, a trusted friend that they're the only person in the world that would be both willing to read that and also to moderate it for me. So it was very much a decision that I did not make lightly, and that probably would have been impossible to make if I didn't have that specific friend. So that's kind of all of that. And I've also just gotten a lot of comments on that specific video talking about how even mentioning it was giving fuel to the haters, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that talking about it is important, and that it's a thing that people should expect when they post themselves online. It shouldn't be a big enough detractor to stop you from starting. And I saw a lot of people comment on that video saying that they'd want to start channels and were now rethinking it because of my video, and I never want that to happen. And it's I want to emphasize that my experience in the art community is pretty unique. A lot of art YouTubers like Al and Katie my other art YouTuber friends, have not had that experience. And that it's not a thing that is guaranteed to happen. It happens obviously way more than it should, but it should never stop you from starting. I got, I think, over 1,500 comments on that one video, which is way above the norm. All of them were really supportive. Most of them were incredibly supportive, and 99% of my overall comments are really supportive. So I want you to keep those numbers in mind. Obviously, as humans, our brains are pretty primed to keep negative feedback at the forefront of our thoughts, but that's the thing that, we all have to work past, and it's okay to talk about that and be honest about how it affects us because it's a part of being on the internet. So yeah, that's just my thoughts before we get into the episode, and with that, let's just jump right in. Hi there, and welcome to the Make Art Don't Starve podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey.
And I'm your other host, Al. And Kelsey, you have some things you want to say.
I have a lot of things that I want to say, actually. So, okay. I've talked about before how, my channel grew really fast over the summer, and I was, not prepared for that to happen. I wanted to succeed, but I wasn't, prepared for sudden success. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my life over the past couple of months has been kind of reacting to that, internalizing that as a part of my life, in this new normal that I have. And YouTube's changed my life for the better in so many ways, but there are a lot of disadvantages that are kind of strong and important to talk about, but it's a weird feeling to criticize the thing that changed my life so drastically. But there are distinct disadvantages to growing so fast kind of out of the blue without expecting it or without being prepared, and having this sudden influx of constant feedback, advice. I talked about in a recent video that I've been getting a lot of really targeted personal hate comments, and I shared some of those hate comments in the video where I talked about it. There were a lot of comments that I couldn't share, that I couldn't say on YouTube, threats, and Yikes. I don't think it's a targeted group of people doing this, but it's a weird feeling to go from this time last year I had 1,000 subscribers to now I have 100,000 subscribers, and mentally wrapping my brain around all of these people that are here and trying to filter out all the positive comments with the hate comments and not letting that affect me so much. But it's easier said than done to ignore all the hate comments when you are getting so many of them every day. And obviously it's a part of being online or whatever, but I think it's a distinctly negative part of being online that's worth it to talk about.
Yeah, I think so. Talking about getting it every day, it's so hard to have this job. It's a really good job. I'm living my dream life right now, and it's really hard. We talk sometimes on this podcast about the negatives, and it sounds like we're complaining. I mean, we are. And it sounds mean. And I think the thing is, like, from an audience member standpoint, if you don't create content and you don't have a sizable audience where, like, there's some scary amount of people watching you, you can never really understand, like, why we feel the way we feel, even if we explain it. It will always sound petty and ungrateful, and it feels that way. I feel bad complaining about these things.
Yeah.
Like, what in my half of this discussion, I feel bad about complaining about people who have good intentions. I feel bad about complaining about people who are engaging with my content and watch me and support me. It sucks to complain about, but you will never understand what it's like to be in this position until you are. And so, like, one great example is I get asked all the time, what sketchbook do I use? And it's become a joke on my channel, and I've tried to be super, like, chill about it. But back in the day, like, at first, I was very upset about it. It used to anger me a lot because I would make a big deal of, in the video, putting the name of the sketchbook on the screen, showing it, linking it, saying it out loud multiple times throughout the video, and all the comments would be, what sketchbook is that? What sketchbook is that? And it's like within the first minute of the video. And I would get annoyed, and I think people thought that it was silly of me to get annoyed, and it is. Objectively, it is. When someone DMs me and says, hey, what sketchbook do you use? It's rude of me to get upset. But from the audience
standpoint, also it's like, put in a
Google it.
Crumb of effort.
Yeah. And the other thing is
into discovering this without having to ask me.
Yeah, like I've already said it on another video. But like when someone asks something like that and like we get annoyed by these kinds of things, it's one audience member asking you one time. Like from their point of view, it's one person asking them one time. From our point of view, it's a lot of people asking or commenting the same thing multiple times a day, every day. It does become exhausting. And that's one of those things that, like, it's so hard to understand, and I feel bad complaining, but like when you do experience that every day, it's hard to be okay with it.
Yeah. And like the comment about the sketchbook is like so mild, but it's also like it's totally valid that you're frustrated about it. And like you get like homophobic comments all the time. I think we both get like sexist comments all the time, comments like that are really demeaning about like our appearances or our art. Like I get very targeted comments about my appearance, like the way that I look, the fact that like I'm not like super thin, I'm like short. I've always been like around like 145, 150-ish pounds, like ever since I was like a teenager. And that like really bothers some people. They're upset by the fact that like I'm this weight, which is like normal.
Right.
And it's like, what? But it really bothers people, especially men. They comment tons of things about my appearance, like my glasses, my bangs, like the way that I look. And it's like, of course you should shrug those things off, like obviously, right? And it's like that's of course like the goal and like the correct response, or even like to shame them publicly. Oh my god, sorry, I knocked something off my desk. But like it's totally normal, and like a good response to just ignore those comments, to shame them publicly, to be like, this is not acceptable. But it's also totally fine and like normal to be upset by that kind of stuff. And like I think that so many people just expect people and creators online to kind of just like take the harassment as like part of the job, and like this is the thing that we're supposed to be okay with and fine with and like just tolerate without complaint a lot of the times. And I think that's really bad.
I agree.
And I think that we should feel comfortable talking about the hate and the negative comments people experience online. And it's not like you're trying to get a bunch of pity. It's not like, you know, you're trying to say that you have like the worst job in the world or that you're like ungrateful, but it's just, you know, this is a disadvantage. And a lot of my audience wants to have like the same kind of career trajectory that I've had. They want to become art YouTubers or like artists online. And it's like, I think this is important to set your expectations. So that you come into it realistically, because I was really taken off guard. As soon as I started to get like, you know, 5-10 hate comments a day, some that were really well-meaning but had intense criticism baked in about like my character or my business model, it started to bother me. I started to like censor the kind of video ideas that I wanted to make. I stopped like, you know, filming full body shots or, you know, like vlog a lot of the time and like share my art because people were complaining about it or like they weren't interested. And it's hard to just like keep going despite that criticism. And I talked about it in the video that I made, how I'm planning and have been taking a step back from my comment section on YouTube and like not looking at the feedback anymore, not really like caring about it, choosing to not see or respond to it, like let the chips fall where they may. People are going to feel about me however they want to, and that I want to be like more honest and authentic, but like I'm not going to let like people's opinions of that honesty or authenticity like cloud my judgment of what I want to share. And that like I'm going to be focusing more on the Discord server, which is a, you know, more selective place for my community, because you have to choose to be a part of it. You have to like, you know, follow me to a second platform, which is really hard to get like a bulk of your audience to do. And I think for me that's a good thing. Like I want the Discord server to stay like relatively small. I prune inactive members that haven't logged on in like the past month or something, because I want to keep it like a tighter knit kind of community. I got a lot of comments responding to that video that told me that like it was a mistake to talk about the hate comments, that I shouldn't give them like the fuel, or I should just ignore it, or like I should just keep looking at my comments anyway and like not read the hate comments or filter through them. But like the hate comments enter the same feed as everything else. Yeah. And the way that moderation works on YouTube is that you have to enter in like words and phrases that you don't want to appear in your comment section. And like YouTube can sometimes automatically flag things for you as well, like separately from that like blacklisted keywords list. And that like that goes to a different part of your hidden comment section. Like there's publicly and like hidden for you in the creator studio, like that's your experience. You have to move them from one to the other if they appear in the main feed. And like sometimes hate comments and criticism that's well-meaning but maybe like hurts in a bad way will slip through in a way that like, you know, you can't just not look at. Yeah. If you're reading the comments, like you have to read the comments to like really understand what they're about. And sometimes like hate comments are going to slip through this despite your best efforts. And I have a long list of blocked words, like long list, like 200 plus terms I think I've blocked in my comment section.
Oh my gosh. For reference, I have like 3.
Yeah, I have a bunch.
Yeah, so that's pretty extreme. Like that's awful. That's not a good situation for you to be in.
Yeah. And they all of those comments that like include the blocked word show up in the hidden comments section of the comments feed at my creator studio. So I have to choose to flip back and forth. But like also because I have so many terms, there are a lot of like comments that are totally fine that end up in that section that like I would like to like read and like know that they exist. So I try and like approve the ones that work well, because like for example, I had a lot of like comments in this particular video that like had blocked words that like normally wouldn't, like comments wouldn't include those blocked words in like regular videos, but they did in this one because like I was talking about hate comments. Yeah, I know it's like a muddled way for me to explain all of this, but yeah, it's just like it's I think not helpful for people to suggest like that I should just do more moderation, because like I've been doing an insane amount of moderation. Yeah.
What I thought was really interesting about that reaction to your video was, one, people just being like, who cares? The point of your video was saying it's hard to not care. It's really hard when you get inundated with these sorts of comments every day. It's hard to not care. Anyone would be affected. And two,
I would love to not care.
Yeah, the response of like, well, just don't look at them, or just moderate. What you think that this is Kelsey's first response, was making a video about it?
Yeah.
You think she didn't try anything else first?
It ain't my first rodeo, sweetie.
Yeah. Like again, like great, like really good intentions. Like that's nice of people to want to support you. Right. But, like, it's so frustrating. Sometimes it feels like you're screaming into the void a bit. Like, I'm having this problem, but it's a problem that you're not allowed to have. So it's hard to get the response that you're looking for.
And I think a lot of people don't have, like, the context. Like, they don't have enough information about, like, how YouTube works and, like, their creator studio and, like, how, like, comments are actually moderated to really be able to do that effectively. And I don't want to have someone else moderate my comments for me, really. Like, I don't really feel like it.
I understand.
Because, like, I'd have to trust that person a lot in order for them to, like, I'd have to trust them with, like, my entire public image if they were allowed to, like, respond to and moderate comments. Those permissions are not, like, separated. They're the same thing. And that's giving someone, like, a lot of leeway, and I have to trust them a lot to be able to do that. And I'm not going to, like, hire some random person that jumps into my emails offering to do that for me, because, like, I don't know you.
And historically speaking, like hiring or even unprofessionally hiring, like just having, hi, kitty, having, like, a fan step in and do that kind of stuff, historically never ends well. Like, even if you have, like, patrons who are up there and, like, you trust them, like, that never ends well. So, like, I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Right, exactly. So it's just a difficult situation to be in, and it's made me think a lot about, like, why large YouTubers tend to not respond or look at their comment section at all. And I think there's, like, a really nice, wholesome thing that's lost when you do that. Yeah. But I completely understand now in a way that I didn't before, where it's like, oh yeah, like, relatable. I would not do that too. But like before, my comment section was so wholesome. People left like really thorough, detailed comments, and we really engaged in like a conversation. And that's not true in the same way anymore, purely because like of the scale. First of all, I'm getting so many more comments than I used to, but also like my comments tend to be like, my videos tend to be reaching a broader audience that aren't as familiar with me, or like the community that I'm building, or like my personality, or, you know, the expectations that I have for my community. And it's like, you know, more of a mess than it used to be. And also people tend to like just watch one video and make a bunch of assumptions about me, whereas like my experience is that I remember every video and I make all of the videos, and so to me like my content feels like one long conversation,
right?
Or like one continuous relationship with like a group of people that I dub as like the audience, but like I don't feel the audience like changing and shifting. I just like, you know, make the stuff and then they watch it, and to me like it doesn't feel all that different from when I had 10K to having 100K, like as far as like my experience of making the content. Like it's the same process, just that it reaches so many more people than it used to, and it's like bizarre to like have that experience, I guess.
Yeah. And you talked about the audience being like one giant entity, and that's another thing, like going hand in hand with like, it's hard to understand what it's like from our perspective. There are a few people that stand out, you know, you get to know some of your followers, but a lot of times the audience is just this one entity. It's this one mass, this one conscious being. Yeah. And when a lot of those comments are negative, it feels like all of it is negative. Like, and when all of it, like, so I have a really great audience, and I'm in that place where everything is very wholesome, and I get comments that annoy me because it's the internet, but that's more on me than it is them most of the time. So my comment section is a very great place. And so overall, my relationship with my audience is really positive, and I love it, and I'm having a great time. But when so many of those comments, even if it's not the majority, when it's just a lot of comments that are negative, coming from the same place, for us it's coming from the same place, it feels like all of it's bad. Because
and
it's
I have
all
no
one
idea
thing.
How many of my videos that person watched before they left a hateful comment or a positive one. Mm-hmm. And like your experience of me as a viewer is you watch all the stuff that I put out, or like whatever the amount of stuff that you're interested in, and like, you know, you gain some image of me, like, you know me pretty well. I'm pretty honest about like my childhood, like my background, my journey to where I am today, and like, you know, all that stuff about me, and so you can make like what you feel like is an accurate judgment. But I don't know anything about you. I don't know like how much of my content you've seen, where you're coming from, and also like you only see the parts of me that I show on the internet, and like the parts of me that I have edited to be like specifically like pleasing for my audience, because this is like my job. And there's like that parasocial element where people are disappointed in like something that like I've done, but like that disappointment like doesn't mean anything to me. Like I don't have like we don't actually have a relationship, you know what I mean? Like I don't know this person, they don't really know me. They know like Kelsey as a character and stuff that they watch.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to, like, complain a lot about this job because it is truly amazing.
Yeah.
And I also don't want people to think that, like, we're making complaining about our jobs into, like, content that we're going to make money from. Because that's, like, weird. But, no, I think it's just important to have really honest conversations about what having an audience online really is like, and like, you know, what happens when you grow fast unexpectedly, and the kind of like experience that has. And like in the beginning of the year, when like my analytics looked like a vertical line, when I was like growing a ton and like adding in like, you know, 20,000 subscribers in a month, I was riddled with anxiety. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I'm less anxious now. I'm more, I guess, apathetic to growth overall. I'm like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I'm still going to make the stuff that I want to anyway. But that was a very deliberate attitude that I had to cultivate in myself. And I think it's just important to be, like, honest with aspiring artists that want to have followings online about, you know, like, what is the experience like? And I'm not trying to, like, speak for everyone or sound ungrateful, but, like, just speak my truth as it relates to me. And, like, maybe this will help you, maybe it won't. But yeah, I think the expectation that people have to have a thick skin online is kind of bad.
It's
I don't
true,
think that,
but it's bad.
It's true, but it's bad. Yeah, like you do have to have a thick skin, yes. But like treating sensitivity to hateful comments as like some kind of weakness, I think is odd. And like, I think it's more constructive to be like, I'm sorry this happens. I'll try and report the comments as I see them. So hopefully you can feel bad, like, you know, do whatever. Right. And also like, you know, give you the privacy that you need and like try and not make assumptions about you because I don't actually know you. And like give people that kind of like level of privacy that they actually like should have and deserve. But yeah, so that's how I feel about it. And I think interfacing with your fans and your community is always like a fraught conversation to have. Like there's so many nuances and complexities that you have to consider, and you don't want to alienate anyone, but at the same time you want to like speak your truth and talk about your experiences, and that can be a difficult minefield to navigate, especially like in the art community when our content is our art and like we're so intrinsically entwined, like the stuff that we make and like the community that we have, and it's just difficult. I think setting boundaries is important, and that can be difficult for your audience to understand, but is vital to a long-term career online.
Absolutely. I think it is really difficult to navigate these honest conversations, and it's hard to find a place to have them. And when I have set boundaries, like I did a video where I was doing oil not for the first time, but I was really doing it myself for the first time. I said in the video, please don't give me advice. I figured out a way that I want to do it, and if you give me advice, you're going to psych me out, and you're going to confuse me, and that's what made it hard for me in the first place. And I got comments being like, how, like, in the realm of, like, how dare you say that? But, like, I said it for, like, you can still comment that if you want, like, I don't care, I just, like, will ignore it. But, like, I said that for a reason, and it's weird that just a person requesting, like, hey, can you not confuse me for a second? That being met with, like, no, I'm going to anyways, it's, like, it's weird. And especially when it is our audience who we develop this relationship with. I want them to like me, and I want them to trust me, and I want to be friends with them in that parasocial kind of way. But then there's the negative side of parasociality where they now expect things from me, and it's really hard for me to...
And they take it a step too far.
And they take it too far, where now they're allowed to say things about you or expect things from you or expect you to be online and relevant all the time for them. And available all the time.
Cold DMs and their emails that are like super long and personal, and like I don't actually want to hear about all of this stuff about you because we don't know each other, and that's weird. I'm sorry.
Don't trauma dump on me. I don't know you, and it's hard to shatter that reality, and it's also hard to it's hard to have these exact conversations to say like I'm going to complain about the audience that I rely on. It's really hard to do that. But
that's
it's also,
a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's literally a part of the job. And it's a part that it feels like we're not allowed to talk about. And I don't like that. I don't like that I'm not allowed to say, like, hey, please don't treat me this way. I don't like that you're not allowed to say, like, hey, please be nice to me. I hate that. And I think, you know, we want to be the change that we want to see in the world. And I think having these conversations is a great first step to say, like, hey, there's boundaries that need to be put in place, including, like, even if you're going to pay me money, like, there are boundaries around that. And I'm not available to you 24/7.
Yeah. And I, like, kind of even, like, feel cringy just, like, talking about it. I know. Like, I feel like I'm doing some weird thing. Like,
I feel mean.
I feel mean. I feel like people are going to take this podcast episode, like, the wrong way or something. But this is the reason why a lot of popular creators online just, like, don't read or respond to comments.
It's why they
just, like, live their lives.
Yeah.
And, like... So I follow this video essayist, CJ the X, and CJ the X, they make a lot of really amazing video essays on random stuff. They have one about, like, Twilight New Moon. They have one about Bo Burnham versus Jeff Bezos. They have one about the 10 different types of water that, like, are the favorite types of water. And it's, like, tap water versus, like, you know, like, water bottles and, like, you know, random stuff. But they are super open about how they never check their analytics, they never check their comments, they like make stuff and they disappear. And at first, as like a content creator myself, I thought that was kind of weird. I thought that was like, oh, like why aren't you engaging with your community? This is something like maybe bad about you. But the more I like am a full-time creator, the more that I do post stuff online, the more I think that maybe that's like the right idea.
Right.
That I should just like distance myself from it, make stuff, people are going to respond however they're going to respond, and like I don't actually have like a lot of impact on that. Like the times where someone has commented something bad about me or like critiqued me in like a way that like is not outright hateful, but like very clearly like, you know, they have strong thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I've engaged with that. I don't feel like I've ever actually persuaded them or convinced them to like dial that back or something.
Yeah.
And that the conversation's not actually productive. And that in my Discord server, like, it is more productive, it is more personable, like, you know, we get to know each other, it's different. But I kind of admire that, like, distancing now in a way that I didn't before, where it's like, oh, like, that sounds quite freeing to just, like, do whatever you want and post it and, like, just have the confidence, the sheer confidence that it's going to, like, perform and then not even, like, think about it.
Yeah.
It's wild. I think I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, I love that for you. And that's so interesting to hear, because we are in very different places with our audience and with our size and with the way our channels are going. And I'm like a few steps behind at this point, where I'm still, like I said, in that place of it being wholesome and fun. And that's really scary for me to hear. Like, for you down the road, like, as in that could be my future. That's, like, really scary to hear, because I totally see that being smart. Like, a good move for people. But it's like, I love the audience connection and I love talking with people. And I don't think, not to say that you don't or that CJTheX doesn't, but when you move past the point that I'm at, like, I'm scared to lose that. I'm scared to be, like, to lose that funness with the audience. And, like, I watch, like, other big art channels and I see the way that they interact in the comments, and it's so generic. And it makes me sad. Like, I want to be able to connect with the artists that I like, and I want to be able to connect with my audience. But it's not always feasible, especially when people don't respect those boundaries. And so it's that's so interesting. Like, it's scary and fascinating to hear you say that, like, totally disengaging sounds appealing to you, because to me that sounds so sad. And
it is very sad.
It's sad, but I see down the road, I can see why so many people have to do that, because of the boundaries, because of negative comments, because of the sheer size of your audience. Like, I can see that being an inevitability for any large-ish channel, but that makes me sad.
Yeah, and like, I hope your growth trajectory, and like, I wish my growth trajectory had been like much slower. I wish I hadn't gained like 70,000 subscribers in like 4 months. I think that was a bad thing that happened to me. I wish it hadn't.
Wish to happen. So I think that would be a good thing to talk about. Don't hope for that.
Yeah, I do not hope for that. Try and grow slow. That way, like, your brain can catch up, because, like, I promise you, once you start getting tons of comments about things about yourself that you, like, never even, like, thought twice about, it's going to feel really weird, really overwhelming. As soon as you start getting, like, 20,000 subscribers in a month, you're going to think to yourself, oh my god, I have to, like, follow up on all of my most popular videos. I have to give these people what they want. And you're going to sell out in a way that you don't expect. It's going to feel like a good decision to do at the time. And you're going to, like, regret it. Like, a lot of the comments that I've been getting talking about how I don't show my art a lot, and that, like, I've hashed this topic to death on the podcast, and I'm sorry, it's just, like, my lived experience.
No, go off.
It's, like, not showing my art at the time felt like a very good decision, because people wanted to see the business stuff, and, like, that helped me grow and get to where I am, but, like, looking back, that was a bad choice. It was a good choice in the short term, and, like, maybe even in the long term, I'll look back and think that was a good choice. But, like, it has required a very conscious, like, shifting directions back to what I was doing before, even though what I was doing before was, like, optimally best for strategy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, like, the thing that you were originally doing didn't bring you success, but it's what you wanted to do, and now you're in this weird position.
Yeah, and, like, I'm trying to, like, refocus a little bit and kind of do that. And a lot of people think that, like, there are these two extremes, like business content, art vlogs, like one or the other. You can't have both, and that's not true. There's a spectrum, right, of, like, you know, business content that includes art as, like, you know, the predominant visual element, and there's a ton of, like, experimentation that you can do with format to really land on something that works best for you and that your audience still wants to see, that takes all those boxes of, like, is it fulfilling? Do you want to make more of it? Is it performing well? Because, like, let's face it, like, when this is your job, performance becomes actually a pretty important metric to take into consideration for, like, sponsorships and, like, everything else. Like, you want to, like, have all of those things work, and you need to be very objective when you're assessing like your well-being and your performance and your channel trajectory, being like, what's working, what's not working. Because like if my channel was on a significant decline and I was only posting art vlogs, I'd have to be like, okay, I can't post as many art vlogs anymore, even though I maybe really want to. So yeah, I think it's important to really find like that happy medium for yourself and like stick with it, because market forces are very powerful, just by their very nature, and it's really easy to give into that. And it was just like it was a wild time. Like when I moved over the summer from New York City to the Bay Area with my boyfriend, and he had COVID, so he was like stuck in the Bay Area. I was in New York City. I had to do all the packing, like myself, like all of it, like our entire apartment. I had to like spackle the walls, clean the apartment, like do everything. Because he was just like trapped here. Luckily he had like secured us an apartment, so we were all good for that, and he was like doing stuff like over the phone and whatever, like hiring movers and stuff. But I like had to the entire like 6 weeks of that like part of the summer off to just like pack and stuff. I was like making more money than I ever had in like my entire life at the time. Doing literally nothing. Literally nothing. No work was being done. And I was just like packing, and I was like watching like seasons like 1 through 8 of like Criminal Minds while I was like assembling cardboard boxes, and it was like a really bizarre experience to realize like, wow, like this is something that works in the background and I don't have to put any effort in, and like what does that, like, is that a good thing? I don't know.
Like
it feels weird and disorienting that like I can, and unfair that I am somehow like able to make all of this money, like I don't deserve it. So it's like a weird thing to have happen to you.
It's weird. It's weird.
And I wouldn't recommend it.
I think for sure one thing that I've learned vicariously through you, Kelsey, is that slow and steady is the way to go online.
Absolutely. Yes.
Watching you, have felt so, like, I've had so much sympathy for you going through like this whole process of growth. At first it was super exciting, and I won't lie, I was jealous. I was like, yo, this is crazy. And I was excited for you, and then you started mentioning like you were getting these negative comments, and I was like, wow, that sucks, but it makes sense. You know, your audience grows in proportion. There's always going to be that, you know, X percent, and that's going to grow in size, you know, the bigger you get. And then I was thinking, well, you know, as you were growing really fast and you were talking, you were getting more and more negative comments, I was thinking, well, if you're growing so fast, you can't control the target audience that you're going to. I was reading your comments every once in a while. I was like, you know, the comments seem very different than the kind of comments that I get, even the positive ones. I sometimes would get this, you know, that weird like alpha male vibe, and I was like, well, I guess maybe her videos are maybe being pushed to like a totally different audience, and so she can't at all control like who's watching her videos. And then I was starting to think, well, maybe blowing up is not a good thing. Maybe this is not beneficial. And I think we've learned that it's not. And I wish I was growing faster. Like, I'm straight up, I do wish that I was growing faster. I'm worried that I won't be reaching like my number goal that I had for the year. But at the end of the day, even if it means I move out later than I want to, if it means that it's not destroying my mental health to live my dream career, even if it's slower than I want, I think it's worth it. And I think the overall like lesson is like, be patient and be passionate, and think about the business and think about the numbers and be smart and strategize, but don't rush it. Like, be patient. Let it happen also, naturally.
Like, stay true to yourself, and
absolutely.
Like, even if you do experience like a similar growth trajectory to me, and like you do like blow kind of out of nowhere, and like I saw it coming, but it wasn't entirely out of nowhere, but it felt very much out of nowhere. Be prepared for that.
I think if you blow up, let it be for something that you're really passionate about.
Yes, and distance yourself when you feel like it's appropriate, because like, as much as I would love to like have that same relationship with my audience still, it's just not true for me anymore, really, and that sucks. But I think it's also just like a part of growing, and like a lot of creators experience this and like never talk about it. Like, I guarantee you that like a lot of, you know, YouTubers just like don't really engage their comment section anymore, and there's like, you know, a very similar reason. But yeah, it sucks. Not a lot you can do about it though.
I think you're on a great path, though, for kind of restoring, you know, your relationship with online, like, where do you want it to be? I think you'll get there. I think
That's interesting.
The 35 to whatever that age range is, I think people with a higher percentage of that get a higher percent of the really in-depth criticism comments.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
That's my theory.
I think, like, the weird comments, like, let me read one. Maybe you should invest in a dietitian. That's probably, like, 18 to 24. Whereas, like, a super long comment talking about, like, how I'm a bad person and, like, you know, my art is, like, terrible and that I'm insecure and, like, whatever, is probably, like, a little bit older.
Yeah. That one that you sent me where it was, like, super long, like, that's someone older.
Yes. Yeah, it was weird. Some people are really unhinged. Like, why would you think that I read that, number one? Why would you take the time to write that, number two?
And, like, why do you feel so bad, strongly? Like, no,
I keep thinking to myself, like, why are you obsessed with me?
Regina George moment.
Yeah.
No, because it is that thing of, like, wow, I really am living rent. I mean, I don't get comments nearly like that, but sometimes I'll get, like, literally, like page-long comments about, not necessarily about me, but it's like, I must be living rent-free in your head for you to think that this is worth your time. Like,
right. It's really spend, weird.
Like, I mean, we spend time talking about things, but it's because, like, when you're with a friend, like, that's different. And we spend time, we spend a lot of mental energy on our careers. But, like, I'm not sitting here talking for, like, 30 minutes about someone else. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And also, like, we're friends, and also, like, we have this unique thing in common that a lot of our friends in real life don't have in common.
We only have each other.
Yeah, and it's like, you're the person.
Of course we're gonna, like, spend time talking about those things.
Right, but I couldn't imagine writing, like, a 3-paragraph long comment demeaning someone's character or something, even if I, like, meant them well.
No.
I personally, like, I almost never comment on something with more than like 3 sentences, because I just, like, don't care enough for, like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, so on the flip side, it's literally about caring, because on the flip side, the only time that I've gotten, not the only time, but in recent memory that I've gotten long comments, but it was an amazing thing, was when I was talking about that midlife crisis that I was having in a studio vlog, about, like, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And this is talking about, like, that connection with my audience that I don't want to lose. So, I mean, every single comment was paragraphs of people comforting me and reassuring me and offering, like, support. And it was I mean, I've never felt, my heart has never been warmer. Like, that was such an amazing moment for me in my career. Like, that was so wonderful. And it's because they care. Otherwise, they would not be spending that much time on the comments. And, like, for the flip side, for you to care so much about disliking or, like, being annoyed to spend that same amount of time, like, what are you, I know what they got out of it. When they were being nice, they were also, like, talking to themselves and helping themselves with that problem. But when you're just, like, mean for that long, like, what are you getting out of it?
I can't imagine the kind of person that, like, makes that their hobby.
I know. You gotta be bored.
Like, the comments that I got in that video talking about hate comments that I made, I mean, I think it has the most significant, like, view to comment ratio I've ever had on my channel. It has 22,000 views and literally 1,000 comments.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of people, like, a lot of the comments were super sweet. Like,
good.
Incredibly kind. Some of them were, like, weird. I don't know, like, some people, like, felt the need to, like, tell me, like, wax poetic about how pretty they think I am, because I talked about the weird comments I was getting about my body. But, like, that's kind of, like, like, do you see how that maybe is maybe, like, not the response that I wanted? So, yeah, a lot of the comments were super sweet. I mean, you left a really sweet comment, too, that has 355 likes, by the way, so congrats.
Oh, wow. It better be the most liked comment.
It's not, sadly.
Ah, well, I'm deleting it. Sorry, you don't get my nice comment anymore.
Thank you. I would appreciate that, personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the comments are super sweet, super long, and very kind. Like, they meant well, and I really appreciate, like, that outpouring of support, and, like, it meant a lot to me. I haven't, like, really responded to, like, a bunch of them, because, like, that's the whole point of the video, that I don't really want to do that anymore. But, like, you know, it's nice to, like, acknowledge that people just, like, liked that video, and, you know, like, sympathize with, like, the thing that I'm going through, and, like, you know, understand my perspective, respect my decision to do that. So yeah, I think, like, I actually already feel way better.
Good. Yeah.
Like, having made that choice to distance myself, I already feel like I'm able to take more creative freedom than I felt comfortable doing before, and that, like, I can take those creative risks because I just won't be accepting feedback.
Yeah. I want to tack on I have one more thought about this to my part of the video, like my episode and this. It's not that we want our videos to be an echo chamber of, like, bat packs. Sorry. It's not
Patting
that
on
we
the
want...
back.
Yeah, we don't want back pats. It's not just like an echo chamber of yes men and telling me that I'm doing a good job. Yeah. It's just that there are certain things that like anyone would not want to receive. I'm not against getting critique. I would love, sometimes I ask for critique. I love advice sometimes. But like any person in any conversation, there are just some things that don't need to be said. And I think that the internet has a problem with understanding where that line is.
Yes. Like comments about, you know, our character, like, you know, whether or not we're good people, or our personal history. Like I talked about in that video how like the reason that I felt those comments were, you know, affecting me so much is because like I had a history of like being abused as a kid.
Yeah. And
people just like, some people just decided to like completely invalidate that experience, and it's like I don't actually want to receive that. Please and thank you.
Thanks though. Slay.
And that's like difficult to filter out because there aren't like, you know, specific phrases everyone's going to use in comments like that, and it's difficult to moderate that kind of thing. And I don't want to give someone that complete trust over my personal brand to moderate comments for me. Unless it was like, I don't know, like my boyfriend or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
And even then, I bet he would just like delete more comments than probably I would because like he feels more defensive
protective,
or something. I don't know. It's not that we want constant outpouring of support, and in fact, like there's some positivity, which again, we talked about in your episode, is toxic. But it's just that like at a certain point you have to set a personal boundary for what you're going to and going to not accept, and just like enforce that and like do whatever you need to do to like stay healthy. And like there's no right or wrong answer to how you choose to respond to criticism. I mean, there is a wrong answer actually, but but that like, you know, however you want to deal is how you want to deal. And you know, we're all unique people with our own unique personal experiences, and like nothing is like, you know, super cut and dry. Everything has a lot of nuance to it. So yeah, a bit of a downer these past 2 episodes.
I know, we gotta do something fun next.
They were important to talk about.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's our episode. If you watched on Spotify, please rate us 5 stars. We are on basically every podcast app imaginable, so, you know.
Listen to us.
Yeah,
please.
I would love that. And let us know what you want to see next. This is a channel that we actually do read and respond to comments on, so there we go.
The comments have been great on this channel. They have been great. We love them. We love you guys.
Yes. You guys are awesome. So, see ya. Bye.
Bye.